We now move to law and order and concerns about protecting those who protect us.
My name's Monique, I'm from Tauranga, and this question is important to me like so many other New Zealand families who have loved ones that are in the police force. What I want to know is what plans National or Labour have put into place, if any, to ensure that policemen and women of New Zealand have greater power in protecting themselves against criminal brutality while in the line of duty. This comes into light due to the recent tragedies that have happened this year, and also for the many policemen and women who are subject to criminal brutality every single day while in the line of duty and trying to protect our society.
I think we can keep these ones relatively brief. Helen Clark?
I think one of the most important moves is the decision Police Commissioner's just made to allow the police to have tasers. I think that will give them much better and more immediate protection. The police do, of course, get fitted with those very important protective vests, but I think the taser is going to be a real breakthrough in giving them better self-defence capacity.
John Key, would you look at arming our police?
I also support tasers. I don't support arming any more than they currently are. Tasers are a non-lethal option. I think that's the way to go. But I think the second thing we need to acknowledge actually is why there's so many violent attacks on our police officers now. And I think you can trace it back to drugs and particularly P in our society. We've got to get out there and get tough on those gangs who are at the forefront of the manufacture and distribution of drugs. And we saw it when that police officer recently, Don Wilkinson, lost his life. There's just far too many police officers in New Zealand.
What does getting tough actually mean, though?
Well, look, I think tough means a lot of things. You've got to tackle crime right across the board. You've got to get out there with that youth crime. Look, we've seen violent crime in this country. It's increased 12% in the last year alone. Young New Zealanders hanging around in gangs. I make no apology for saying I want them to go on these year-long programs, including the army-style correction camps.
So boot camp for young offenders,
I make no apologies for that because, look, we've got youngsters hanging around in these youth gangs, tagging things. They're going off the rails. The Chief Youth Court Judge, Andrew Beecroft, says there's 1,000 of these serious young offenders. He describes them as unexploded human time bombs. I'm not going to let them explode on my watch. I'm going to go out there and do something about it. Now, of course, you need literacy and numeracy courses to be tagged along with it. You need to have the drug and alcohol rehabilitation. No one's arguing just a boot camp. But I'm not going to sit back there and just let that be in that situation. And I'll also go and put more police on the street.
Helen Clark, do you believe we need more police?
Well, we've added a lot to the police force.
But do we need more?
Well, let's judge that. We've put in 2,500 more people into the police since we became the government, and there's 1,250 more officers being added in this 3-year period of budget. So there's no doubt we've substantially increased the numbers.
Are they cops on the front line, though?
Well, yes, of course, when you make that sort of increase, they're going up the front line. They're not sitting in the office. They're actually out there in our community.
The police association suggests they are. I mean,
they've got quotas. They've got quotas for traffic tickets.
I'll just finish with Helen Clark first on this.
With all due respect, I think we have greatly increased the numbers out in the front line, and that has to happen. Let's agree with one thing. P is a scourge on our society. It is wrecking families, it's wrecking young people's lives, it's causing endless misery where murders are committed by people under the influence. The gangs who deal in it have to be dealt with extremely severely. One of the reasons why our government brought in longer sentences for the worst offenders was precisely so we could send a powerful signal that we are not going to tolerate that kind of crime.
I just want to get this does bring us to the next YouTube question, but it's not just the police who need protection. Now, this is a question reflecting the worries of shop owners.
Hi, this is a question for politicians of New Zealand. I just want to ask the question now. The recent crime which was happened in the South Auckland where Mr. Navtej Singh was being shot. And after that, there were other recent crime which was happening for the businessman wherein the liquor store owner in Ottara was being charged to keep a hockey stick for a self-defense when there was a crime in the shop. How would you address this, and how would we prevent crime and protect the businessmen in that area?
John Key, how far are people allowed to go to protect themselves, in your view?
Well, reasonable self-defence has to be allowed. And
hockey stick fit into that?
Well, reasonable self-defence? I mean, when you start picking up the New Zealand Herald and the front page is shopkeepers are in the most dangerous profession in New Zealand. Well, I think there's something wrong there, and there is something wrong. So we've got to deal with some of these issues. So some of them are, for instance, more police physically on the street. That's got to help that police presence. Longer sentence. We're arguing very strongly no parole for those worst repeat violent offenders. But one interesting issue with the Navatesh Singh, a tragic loss and a tragic New Zealander lost his life in that situation. I tell you what was revolting about that murder. Not only did that man lose his life, but one of those youth gangs went back and tagged his shop 2 hours after he'd been murdered. Now, I make the case very strongly, let's go back. If we can solve the youth crime issues, if we can deal with those drugs issues, we've got a better chance of making sure that New Zealanders are not victims of crime.
See, Helen Clark, I mean, you look at the crime stats, crime is down, but violence is up. And it's not up in Mount Albert or in Parnell with respect to both of you. It's up in South Auckland.
Mark, violent offending reporting is up. There's no question. The police tell us that 90% of that increase is coming from greater reporting of violence in our homes. We've run very big campaigns like It's Not Okay, and that's brought that out. But can I come back to our YouTube viewers' question, which was about the shopkeeper? I absolutely agree that our shopkeepers have to be able to use reasonable force to defend themselves. I've had the opportunity to speak personally with a gentleman who did defend himself. He has been in New Zealand a lot of years. He's never had any trouble with the law. He was distraught. Now, I hope he gets a good opportunity to put his case.
He shouldn't have been charged?
Well, I'm always reluctant to make a comment that's critical of our police because I believe in supporting and upholding them. But I do say that a citizen who feels that they are in danger has to be able to use reasonable force to defend themselves.
But what's wrong with our society, though, when the person that's getting charged is the person that's been assaulted with a knife? Something's very wrong here when the criminal starts becoming the victim.
So both of you here effectively are saying the police made the wrong call in charging that man.
We need to understand the facts fully, but I think the fact that New Zealanders are taking to self-defence is the fact that they have lack of confidence that they will get the support, that they will get what is required. And South Auckland, whether we like it or not, I mean, I gave a speech in 2007 talking about the emergence of an underclass in New Zealand because I was worried about those youth gangs and I'm worried about those youth going off the rails. And it's not just youth, it's many others, and we've got to have a comprehensive solution to those problems.
Mark, I think there's a whole lot of levels that we need to intervene on. Dealing severely with bad offenders, violent offenders, is one of them. I think we've also got to look at some of the influences that are coming through all the way from when children are little, where we need to intervene early. I know it's long term, but I think what we're doing in early childhood today will pay off in 20 years' time. There's a very important program, if I could spend 10 seconds, which is called Before School Checks, which is coming in now, which is not only going to check for whether a child can see the blackboard or whiteboard or hear the teacher, it's also going to check as to whether there's some kind of conduct disorder, which if we don't deal with it early, we'll see that child go on to be a misery to society. If we intervene early, we can make a difference to their prospects.
Look, I want to bring Barry Soper in here now.
Well, I guess at election time, law and order is never in such sharp focus, but I'd like to take you back to 1981, John, to the Springbok tour when there was mayhem on our streets, and you said to me in an interview a couple of months ago that, in fact, you were at university at that time, and you held no view on the Springbok tour. Now, I would suggest to you that most people, and certainly those at university, had a view on the Springbok tour. Where was your head at?
Okay, well, look, 27 years ago, I was probably mildly pro the tour, but I didn't go and go to the games, nor did I get involved in any way. 27 years ago, I was meeting my wife, the love of my life, and I tell you what, I was having a great time doing all sorts of things at university.
Did you go to matches?
Sorry?
Did you go to matches?
No, I didn't go to any of the matches. But, frankly, are we going to have a debate tonight? We've got an economy that's facing serious issues, a decade of deficits, and you're asking me a question about something 27 years
It's
ago.
a defining issue,
I'm actually focused on what's going to happen in 27 weeks' time to the New Zealand economy.
I suppose what it comes back to, John Key, is that people are wondering, what do you stand for? And are you just being too careful as a politician there was a sense at election time people don't like to let anything out. Let's not see warts and all.
Well, look, the Springbok tour just wasn't a big part of my life. Now, I accept for a lot of New Zealanders, and I accept Helen for you it was. I accept that. I understand that. A lot of people felt very strongly one way or the other about it. I did not. I was doing a whole lot of things at that time. I don't think that makes me a bad person because I didn't have a strong view on the Springbok tour in 1981.
You know why we felt strongly about it? Because there were teams coming from South Africa which were racially selected. Nelson Mandela, a respected statesperson today, was in jail for decades and decades. And John said it didn't mean anything to him at the time. He didn't really care about it.
I didn't have a strong view.
I think it does come back to basic values and human rights, and whether that was ever right that we had that sort of rugby relationship with South Africa. I say it wasn't, and it is fantastic South Africa is now a democratic country.
Let's move on from 1981.
I say apartheid's wrong, but I also say the big challenges that New Zealand faces are big economic challenges, whether New Zealanders are going to make enough money, have a job, basically able to keep their fortunes going and whatever things they want to do in their future. Not what happened 27 years ago.
Look, you can get your wish, John Keep. We're going to move on from 1981 because does free education actually exist? We put that to our potential PMs after the break. And what makes them think they have what it takes to lead us?